we saw on X your transit meeting with in Los Angeles.
Yes.
You're meeting with the president of Honduras.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us what you talked about?
Yes, this was the second time I already had a meeting with him, and I told him what a great relation Paraguay had with Taiwan. In this second time, I told him that I was traveling to Taiwan again to strengthen our relation and to renew the commitment of Paraguay to continue to collaborate and to work hand to hand with Taiwan, and he showed a lot of interest in knowing more about the experience of Paraguay. So I strongly encourage him to look what is happening in Paraguay with economic diversification, growth, development, and the partnership that we have.
For the president of Honduras to come to Taiwan, there might need to be a diplomatic relationship, re-established first. Did you touch on that issue at all?
I didn't get into the details on that, but for him is no secret that Paraguay openly support Taiwan. So he knows very well that we are not only an ally, but a strong advocate. Of course, my position and every time I go to the United Nations and I raise the issue on the recognition of Taiwan, doesn't pass below the radar. They know that very, very well. So he's very, very well aware, and I'm sure that he is evaluating what the previous administration decided when they moved the relation from Taiwan to Communist China.
This being your fourth visit to Taiwan
Yes.
as president, and I'm just wondering whether you managed in your previous visits to leave Taipei, go out of Taipei a little bit to see the countryside, other cities and the mountains maybe?
This is my fourth visit, and every visit has been always an opportunity to know more, to understand better the passion and the commitment of the people of Taiwan. When I came the first time, I was 19 years old. I was very young, and it was probably the greatest experience in understanding something that was for someone coming from Paraguay completely new, not only on the technological advancement, but the capacity of the people not to limit themselves, understanding that the sky is the limit. There's no limit to what the people can achieve. It depends on the vision and the perseverance. So when I won the election in April 2023, I wanted to come to Taiwan before my inauguration, and I came here in July in 23 to make sure that the government of Taiwan understand that the thing that I value the most is the vision of the people of Taiwan. If Taiwan was able to become what it is because of hardship and difficulties. And this is exactly the same that applies to Paraguay. Paraguay understands probably better than any other country in the world what Taiwan has to endure and the pressure that continue to live from mainland China. So, of course, we are not in danger of an invasion from a neighboring country, but we did experience something very, very painful. We went to a war with our neighboring country, and that was a war of extermination. 170 years ago, Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay fought against Paraguay, and we lost 60% of our territory, and 90% of the male population perished during that war. So we understand that very well, and we're finding through hardship the strength to lead, to be not only a country that is a developed nation, but we want to be the most developed nation. And I think that Taiwan experience is a great example for us. So I came in July 23. I came in May of 24 for the inauguration of President Lai, and I had the chance to meet him already during my inauguration, because President Lai was the representative of the government of Taiwan while he was still vice president. And I came during his inauguration to reinforce my commitment. And now I'm coming on an official state visit. So this is also a time to do some harvest on the crops that we planted a couple of years ago. There will be a big announcement tomorrow and signing and projects that will be a transformation not only for Paraguay but also for Taiwan on areas that we are both looking with a great interest, like artificial intelligence and data clouding.
What makes you value our ties so much, and how can we further cooperate to prevent PRC's attempts from materializing?
I think that the history, even though we are so far apart, and if you think about in terms of distance, you cannot get any further Paraguay from Taiwan. If you get a little bit further, you are getting closer, right? This is probably the two distant places on the face of the earth. But despite the difference in the distance and the language and the culture, our history is very, very similar. Our nations were shaped through the drive and the perseverance of the people. It was not shaped by geography, it was not shaped by natural resources, it is shaped by people. And what the people of Taiwan who came from mainland China many years ago, that was the same feeling that the Paraguayans had 300 years ago. Because the people that was living, even before Paraguay being a nation, it was that vision for self-determination, freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness. These are fundamental values that have shaped our vision, and is the same fundamental values that we see on Taiwan. And of course, countries that have this drive are under constant threat from countries surrounding. And this is something that you will also find, for example, in the case of Israel. Israel for 3,000 years have been pursuing that self-determination and has been under a constant attack. So no surprise that Paraguay is probably one of the strongest allies of the state of Israel. So this is very important because we are shaped by fundamental values of the people. And this is what makes this bond so strong. A lot of people think that this is just an economic interest. No. Someone think that Paraguay is a strong ally of Taiwan because of the US. And I have explained it to our good friends in the US that even if the US doesn't support Taiwan, Paraguay will continue to support. We value, because this is exactly what we need to go through. Constant pressure from surrounding countries. So we think that through hardship, you can achieve a lot. There is no easy way, there are no shortcuts for growth and development. It's a constant path, and most of the time that path you will find a lot of difficulties. But through the difficulties, you find the answer to all of the problems.
If I may follow up, sir, there was an article in the New York Times last week about the PRC's attempts to sort of buy politicians, sway public opinion about your decision to maintain official ties with Taiwan. And also, to what you said just now, Paraguay shares similar historical background with other neighboring countries. You all gained independence from Spain,
Yes.
and you even celebrate the same day, independence on the same day, right? Many of the Latin American countries. You just now you talked about common values.
Yes.
What happened to the other countries in South America, for example? They all turned to the PRC. They all switched sides sometime during the 20th century. Don't they share the same common values with Paraguay?
No. When you look at the history, and there is a 5th-century history from the arrival of the Spaniards to South America. They first arrived to the shores of what is today Argentina, and they couldn't settle there because they found a very hostile indigenous community. So they start navigating through a river looking for silver and gold. And in the year 1537, they arrived to the Bay of Asunción, what is our own capital today. And they decided to settle there because they found an indigenous community called the Guaranis, which were very, very friendly. And they decided to settle there. So for 300 years, Asunción was the center of the colony because of the Guaranis. And the Guaranis were the indigenous community that were living, was today Paraguay, but they were also living in the region of Brazil and Argentina. Remember, Paraguay was 60% larger than what is today. But after the war, there was a massive flow of immigrants that came from, this is another wave, a more recent wave in the 20th century, that came from Europe to Argentina and Brazil. It is estimated that between 1880 and 1920, there was an arrival of 80 million Europeans to South America. They did not get to Paraguay for two reasons. One, geography, a landlocked country, was harder to get in. And the other one, that Paraguay was an open grave. So the region of Paraguay was able to maintain a stronger identity to our original roots. Those original roots value bonds, and particularly the role of the family. People used to call Paraguay as a too conservative country because we defend life from the inception. Abortion is forbidden on the Constitution. And the Constitution recognized marriage as the union between the man and a woman. So for many countries, this is too conservative. And we are not a society that discriminates. We don't discriminate if people choose another preference. But we think that family plays a very important role because of the bond that it creates in a society. You don't see that anymore in Argentina. You don't see that in Brazil. Too much of new progressive ideas. And those ideas, in my view, are the ones who respond to the loss of values. And the relation has become more of an economic benefit. All of the countries who have decided to give their back to Taiwan, they chose based not on values, but on economic benefits. They all thought that PRC will be the promised land, and they will have all their problems erased, and they will be very successful countries. This is not the reality. On the contrary, the only country that doesn't have relation with PRC today is the most successful country. Paraguay has been, for 60 years, the country that have grown the most. For 10 years, the country that have grown the most. Over the last 3 years, Paraguay GDP growth has been above 5%, when Latin America is not growing more than 1.5%, 2%. So Paraguay is an example, a good example for Taiwan, a bad example for PRC. That's why the pressure has been increasing, because PRC has promised many countries, including Honduras, couple of years ago, that they will solve all their economic problems. And this is nobody gonna solve your problems for your own. You need to solve your own economic or social problems.
Let me backtrack a
So,
little.
so again, what is the answer? The answer lies on the people. And what is that people value more? Do we put a price on our relations, or we put values on top of economic benefits?
Okay. Let me backtrack a little bit. You said the second wave of Europeans who moved to South America
Yes.
in the 20th century, many of them did not make it to Paraguay
Yes.
because of your geography as a landlocked nation. And the
Yes.
second question was, the second issue was the
Open grave, the open grave. It was an open grave. The country was completely destroyed. So this is like, I don't know, you trying to go to Germany after World War II, and there was no Marshall Plan.
was not.
Do you think that Germany had a chance to recover after the war if it were not for the investment of the US? Impossible.
Open.
Do you think that South Korea was going to be able to grow and development without the access to market? No. But in the case of Paraguay, nobody were there to support Paraguay after the war. A country that was completely wiped out,
Destroyed.
Because remember, in the 19th century, knowledge was passed from people to people. There were no computers, very limited access to universities and higher education. So knowledge was passed from people to people. So when you kill 90% of the male population, you are wiping out all of the knowledge for a country that already eradicated analphabetism ahead of all the other countries. Because we have achieved level of growth and development that were way ahead of the rest of the countries. And that was the reason, because Paraguay was the most powerful nation. And of course, and it's very hard because still today, most of the archives of Paraguay are held in Brazil. They never returned it to us. But there are some evidence that it was not only the intention of our surrounding countries, but there was also intention from outside of our region, particularly UK, because it was the time of the civil war in the US, and Britain did not have access and control over the US anymore, particularly on the cotton market. No surprise, Paraguay was the largest and best quality cotton producer in the world.
Cotton. Okay. Mr. President, excuse me for making a slightly long case about my next question. And it has also to do with what you just told us about the common values, there being common values. And with those common values, Paraguay has maintained official ties with Taiwan, and you benefit economically, if I understand you correctly. You appear to, well, you attributed your economic success partially to your maintenance of diplomatic ties with Taiwan over the years. Not that there needs to be anything else. That alone would be sufficient, right, to convince anyone to keep official ties going between Paraguay and Taiwan. But is it possible for you to point to other things that we can see clearly that because in Taiwan we know better than anybody else, how the PRC is committed to taking over Taiwan and to use whatever means at their disposal. And I mentioned the New York Times article. It is said, some politicians appear to have been, in Paraguay, appear to have been influenced by the PRC efforts to sway and to try to achieve their goal of making Paraguay switching sides. My question is, what other things you think you can point to as reasons why Paraguay would always remain committed to keeping this official ties with Taiwan going?
I think that market diversification, and this is a basic economic concept. Small countries rely on the foreign market, right? Taiwan is a 23 million population, and of course is competing to a nation that is 1.4 billion population. So you cannot rely on one market. This is a basic on economic policy. So Paraguay is a 6.1 million population. Internal market is small. So the economy should be an open economy and integrated to the world. So the notion that Paraguay should rely on only one market is a very bad public policy. So when they tell me, how come Paraguay is giving its back to PRC with such a large market, and I said, well, yeah, they might be 1.4 billion population, but there is another 6.6 billion population to reach out. So I'd rather go to another 200 countries with 6.6 billion than to go to one country of 1.4. When I talk to banana exporters in Ecuador, and I ask them, or shrimps exporter in Ecuador, how they're dealing with their sellings to PRC, they're not happy, because their clients exercise a bargaining power that for them is impossible to replace. So Paraguay is already a very large producer of food, commodity. We produce food for 100 million people. We are blessed with vast amount of land, a great weather that allows us to do 3 crops per year. We don't need PRC to sell commodities. We are already producing and exporting commodities. But for the type of growth that we want to have and the type of goods that we want to produce, we want to be good in technology and manufactured goods. And we're going to be better off following a model similar to Taiwan than to have a relation with PRC. If we were to have relation only with PRC, our export will be concentrated only on commodity, and we're going to be just importing manufactured goods, which is contrary to what we have. So the benefit is not on engaging in trade with Taiwan rather to PRC. The gain is in replicating the economic model of Taiwan.
We are diversified.
Exactly.
And we all know that China can easily weaponize. They do weaponize anything, trade,
exactly.
Exports, imports.
So this is something that I tell to all of the countries that want to hear my experience, why Paraguay maintain relation with Taiwan. And people is very confused because they think, oh, it's because they are just giving you access to one market. No. It's the experience that they have in developing high technology and diversifying the market. Because there is vast amount of capital in the world. But even with vast amount of capital in the world, nobody has been able to replicate the economic model of Taiwan. We want to replicate it. And for that, we want to learn from Taiwan. That's why we have proposed, and now for 10 years, we have the Paraguay-Taiwan Technology University. Because we want to understand the creation of human capital that is required to develop the type of industry that you have developed. And one of the greatest experiences when I came here in 2000, it was to learn the Taiwanese experience of the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and how important it is to develop the concept of clusters and the collaboration. And this is something that Paraguay was able to develop. I mean, we have the system of cooperative for production. and this has worked very, very well in Paraguay. In fact, after Germany, Paraguay is the country with the largest number of cooperatives in the world, the system of cooperative, of different actors collaborating together to create this cluster. And we have mastered this in terms of agricultural production.
So your visit to Taiwan this time is especially meaningful to our people, as you understand that our president was forced to postpone his trip to our African ally after the three countries rescinded its flight permits. And thank you again for the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Paraguay to quickly express concern over the issue. So what's your take on the issue?
I think it's just another thread that PRC is throwing, and I myself, I acknowledge that also for Paraguay, as we continue to go up in the mountain, we are climbing a mountain, we're going up. As we go up and up, there will be less oxygen and the wind will blow faster. This is part of the risk of trying to be successful. Paraguay for many years was an island surrounded by land, a country that was isolated. Not many people heard the name of Paraguay. Not many people have met a Paraguayan. One of the priorities of my administration had been to raise our head, to raise our voice, and we know that there are higher risks on that regard. And the same apply to Taiwan. As Taiwan continue to perform better than PRC, the risk for Taiwan will be also higher. But what is the alternative? Not to be successful, not to do the best for the people. So I think this is part of the risk that we have to take and we have to assume. When I see the numbers, the economic performance under the Lai administration, I see a very strong economic performance. So again, people start to question which model is the one to deliver better results. It is a system where there's no freedom of election, or is a system that is free to elect the authorities? So this is a bad example. The same applies to Paraguay. We have become, for PRC, a very bad example, because they have promised to their new partners that if they were to do trade only with PRC, they will solve all their problems. But how come the country that is not doing trade with you is performing better than the rest? So with that, we know that there is higher risk. And that's why we try to strengthen our forces with Taiwan, but also with the US. And the US has been very, very clear that the US will protect countries that maintain relations with Taiwan, because they understand that there is a fundamental value in that. The world, and I had been a strong advocate, is concerned about the situation in the Middle East, that countries should recognize Palestine, that countries now they are talking that Somaliland should be also recognized, that Kosovo should be recognized. And I said, okay, let's recognize Palestine. In fact, Paraguay already recognized Palestine in 2011. We're gonna recognize Kosovo, but let's also recognize Taiwan. How come the international, the international community is not looking to a country of 23 million people that fulfill all the requirements to be a nation? They run elections, they have 3 branches of power, they have a military, and they are not recognizing. It's completely not reasonable, at least to have a discussion on the issue.
You just mentioned this. We know that you have about 40 business representatives from countries coming to Taiwan.
It's the largest delegation
Yes.
ever from Paraguay.
So could you just talk us through like what they want to? I know there will be a business opportunity event
Yes.
tomorrow or something. So what do you want to achieve with this delegation, and what do you want to bring for both countries?
When I came after my election, before the inauguration, I made very clear to the government, I said, you don't have to worry about the Paraguayan government. We believe that for Paraguay, there's so much to gain from the experience of Taiwan. So you don't have to worry about our diplomatic relation. For 5 years, you can rest and be assured that I will be not only defending but strongly advocating for this. My objective is to convince the Taiwanese business community that Paraguay is a great place to do business and has absolutely nothing to do with diplomatic relations. Of course, these come on top, but on the ground, there are very good conditions for Taiwanese companies to expand their production horizon. What we have done over the last 35 years is to build a very strong economic foundation in Paraguay, very stable. That's why Paraguay is the top performer in Latin America. When you think about growth, low inflation, low taxes, ease of doing business. So there is no better place for doing business in Latin America than Paraguay. But this is something that is new to many people. Not many people knew about Paraguay. So over the last 2 years, we have seen an increased attention on Paraguay. In 2024, Moody's gave investment grade to Paraguay. Last year, it was Standard & Poor's, the rating agencies. And all of a sudden, people start to think, okay, this is the South American tiger. Paraguay is doing what the Asian tigers did in the 90s. In fact, I'm traveling from Taiwan to Philippines. Paraguay was the first country to gain investment grade after 10 years. The Philippines was the last country to gain investment grade for the first time 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. So we're gonna have the first state visit ever to Philippines, because we think that Paraguay is replicating what Taiwan, what Malaysia, what other Southeast countries did in the 90s and the 2000s, which is what? Be more competitive, be more agile than the traditional countries, Japan, South Korea. So this is what we're doing for Latin America. So if you are a business or someone who wants to do business in Brazil, in Argentina, but you are completely suffocated by high taxes, political instability, economic stability, your place is Paraguay. Because you will find a country that is economically stable, politically stable, that have the conditions, and from there you can reach a market that is 500 million population, mostly young people.
So, sir, you talk about...
So the idea is,
yes.
we need to show this. What are these facts? And connect the private sector, because most of the time the private sector who is doing business, they think that the government, just because they have diplomatic relations, they have, no, forget about it. They have nothing to do with diplomatic relations. It's a very strong business case. So the idea in bringing this very large business community is so they can have a dialogue with the Taiwanese private sector and find the opportunities, because that's our job at the end, is create the condition for the private sector to do business.
And sir, you talk about tomorrow you will be announcing the AI cooperation of
Yes.
computing. So I think this is one of the things Taiwan have been working on it, like with the U.S. So how do you see that? We also know Paraguay is a global leader in green energy,
Yes.
which AI computing takes a lot of energy,
Yes.
electricity. So how do you see this Taiwan and Paraguay working in this area, like you are now?
I think it's a perfect match. I think that Paraguay is in a unique position on the technological race. The limit for development in technology is availability of electricity. We have, I mean, the world have created the technology. The technology is available, but the limit to the growth of that technology is the availability of electricity. So there is not enough electricity in the world, and there will not be enough electricity in the world for many, many years. And there are so many new technologies that are being trying to develop, but those technologies cannot grow because there is no electricity. So Paraguay is in a unique position to scale very rapidly with energy that is reliable, that is sustainable, and is very competitive in terms of economic cost, because we don't need to build massive hydroelectric. We have it. We built in the 80s. We have amortized it 100%. And this hydro will continue to produce at least for another 100 years, because they are fueled through the rivers, right? So I think this is a unique position for a country, Paraguay. And on the other hand, we have a country which is in a unique position, who is producing 85% of all the semiconductors, the microchips in the world. And this is what I refer when I was saying that the limit is not in the availability of capital. There is abundance of capital. But even with the abundance of capital, the model have not been replicated because it requires a particular set of skills and a cluster of companies that only a country like Taiwan was able to do it. So if we can combine the technology and the knowledge and the capacity of Taiwan and the availability of electricity, you can create something that is unique in the world.